With the press tour beginning for The Batman, and there being multiple interviews with director Matt Reeves and his cast, we are starting to learn even more about the filmmaker's vision, alongside what we can expect down the line if this first movie is successful. Yesterday, a new interview with Collider was published, and it included Reeves and Pattinson talking about some new details surrounding their Dark Knight iteration. In particular, one of the main points involved Matt Reeves discussing that he would love to tackle Mr. Freeze and bring a more grounded take on the character, similar to how he aims to redefine the Riddler in his latest film. In this video, I'm going to be discussing his comments on Mr. Freeze, alongside some of the other talking points that were shared by Collider as we count down the days to the release of the new movie. But before I get into it, if you want to see much more videos on the Batman leading up to its release date, including the conclusion of my Road to the Batman series and my cinematic edit releasing this Friday, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating, subscribing to the channel, and turning on your notifications. Also, feel free to check me out on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Instagram at Cortex Videos, which is all linked in the description below. But without further ado, let's discuss the new details from Matt Reeves on the potential of Dr. Freeze being a villain in the sequel, and much more. So Batman has been adapted to the big screen with many iterations, those being unique in tone and style, with the gritty realism of Christopher Nolan's films, the gothic Tim Burton installments, and the broken down yet eventually reconstructed take with Snyder's Justice League. And through the extended theatrical history, it has differed every time, and that's what really gets us all excited when it comes to another new take with Matt Reeves. And one thing that comes along with those unique iterations is the plethora of villains that the filmmakers have available to bring to life in various ways. There's of course the more campier, fantastical ones, but even those can be redefined for a new take, and yet done in a way that respects the heart of that character. Matt Reeves recently spoke at a conference after a screening of The Batman, and Collider reports that he doubled down on discussing his grounded take on characters, with a suggestion about who could be a sequel villain. And this focus on realism is something that Reeves will be aiming to bring with a more fantastical villain in the next film. When speaking directly about Mr. Freeze, the filmmaker said, "In my view, I just feel drawn to finding the grounded version of everything. So to me, it would be a challenge in an interesting way to try and figure out how that could happen. Even the idea of something like Mr. Freeze, that's such a great story. I think there's actually a grounded version of that story which could be really powerful and could be really great." So I love the fantastical side of Batman, and while this iteration is very comics faithful, I don't think that this leans as hard into the fantastical. But I think to me what would be interesting would be to try and unwind the fantastical and see, well, how could that make sense here? And so that's kind of my view, how I see it. So that means that the more fantastical villains can make an appearance, just less like Arnold Schwarzenegger's campy interpretation, and more believable in the world Reeves is building. There's plenty of time to see other famous villains and characters be introduced too, with 2 theatrical sequels for The Batman planned, if the first one goes down well, and 2 series currently in the works at HBO Max. Those include one set at the GCPD with Jim Gordon, and another being a crime story focused on Colin Farrell's Penguin. But when it comes to Mr. Freeze, if we do see him in a potential sequel, what could be sources of inspiration? Well, it's key to note that the version presented by Schumacher and Schwarzenegger may have been an over-the-top and quip-filled take, but the actual character himself has a tragic backstory that could easily be tapped into to present a more grounded and realistic iteration. In the comics and the character's history, Dr. Victor Freeze is a cryogenic scientist engaged in research that he hopes will help to cure his terminally ill wife. But eventually, he's involved in a lab accident that freezes his body and forces him to wear a cryosuit in order to survive. His extended will is to still help his wife, but he often comes in contact with Batman along the way, and things get frosty. This was included in Schwarzenegger's version, but the look and portrayal of the character completely left out the humanity, ultimately making him quite one-dimensional. In Reeves Batman, if he were to approach the famous character, the filmmaker could really go more into the inner conflict that he faces and make it a kind of reverse to what we are seeing with the Riddler in this film. The Riddler is being presented as quite mysterious and we barely see his face, whereas with Freeze, we'd be potentially getting more of the exploration of his feelings and a full transformation of that character, seeing the man become the villain we know. It of course remains to be seen how Reeves would do it, and even if he would, but the love he's expressed for that character and wanting to adapt him does get me excited for what we could see in a Batman sequel. With Mr. Freeze, I personally would love to see something along the lines of the Batman Arkham games, which was definitely more emotional and grounded, making for a complete reverse to what we got before. Whatever route he takes though, I'm sure it will be one that fits in with his vision, and something that doesn't aim in too much on the fantastical. But while that was all we got surrounding the potential of a Mr. Freeze in a Batman sequel, actor Robert Pattinson and Reeves himself went a bit more into some of the other intriguing details, such as whether we'd see Robin in this new world. Pattinson expressed that he'd love to see Robin in a film, saying, "He has to be 13. That's the only way I'll accept it. I love Death in the Family and stuff, but I think it'd be so cool. Also, people are so scared of it, but it's kind of exciting. I think it would be a really fun addition." He's of course referencing the comic book storyline which we saw with Jason Todd murdered at the hands of the Joker. Matt Reeves also chipped in here, agreeing that he'd like to do it, while expanding on the pressures of making this kind of movie. He said, "Yes, I agree with that. The thing about doing a Batman movie is it's scary to do one. Because, first of all, there have been great ones, and also every single person has a vision of Batman in their head." Like Pattinson, he noted that he too likes Death in the Family, further adding that he follows the idea of approaching some of these stories and thinking, how can we do this in a way that feels fresh and grounded? Looking at that scary thing and seeing if there's a way to do it. The question, he says, is whether they'll be too scared, but he concludes, "I think we should try." Maybe we will see other storylines like this be done in a way that's appropriate for this grounded take, and after all, the Mr. Freeze and Robin storylines could be the essence of going wild and doing something quite unexpected. Something that surprisingly would work and not feel too fantastical. Obviously, there'll be an element of that theme, but it's all about aiming the focus at telling a relatable and realistic story that just so happens to have all of these elements we know. While they are both different in extreme ways, that kind of approach was something Nolan's trilogy also tapped into, and those films have barely aged because we believe everything that is happening in that more realistic world. And speaking of building a more realistic world, Pattinson and Reeves talked a little more on how they went about building their version of Gotham, and crucially, how the performer went about showing Bruce's emotion behind the cowl, and the difficulties around that. With the design of the Batsuit in the Batman, Robert Pattinson displays more emotive freedom as we see his feelings under the mask. The director wanted to have a Batman who could emote underneath, something you don't get as much in this kind of film. But of course, that comes with its challenges. Matt Reeves said, "Of course, the point was to make his emotions be visible through the cowl. We had no idea how hard it was going to be. I mean, there were times when I would come to Rob and I'd go, okay, great, I just need to feel a little more. It was one of these things, I have to say, it's a true testament to Rob as a performer, and he's so technical as well as incredibly emotional. I would watch Rob get himself into that state where he would be getting really raw before he would shoot. Then I would be saying, I think I need to see a little bit more through the cow. I would just be doing that, but it was definitely by design a huge challenge, and thank God I had Rob to work with. He then expanded on this, going more into his design of Gotham City, saying, "It was very important to me that Gotham not be New York, not be Chicago, not be any particular city. I wanted you to feel like, wow, this is a place we've never been before, but it feels absolutely like an iconic American city, a really corrupt, messed up place." So with that, we get a clear understanding of Reeves bringing in real-world connections and having his characters within that world be able to emote even when they wear the costumes. And what we've seen in the latest TV spots actually shows how he's combined different parts of different cities into one complete version of Gotham. It's like the best of what we could get from a real-life take on this city. There's the Gothic architecture of Liverpool and Glasgow, mixed in with the dingy industrial structures of American cities we know too. It'll be interesting to see how this all comes to life within scenes from the film, but everything Reeves and Pattinson said in this post-screening conference is indeed exciting to hear. But that was my breakdown of the new interview details with Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson on the potential of Dr. Freeze in a Batman sequel and more. We are getting closer to the release date, and soon we will be able to see what reaction this first film gets and how it performs at the box office. If, as we expect, things go down well, then we can expect the director's extended vision to be greenlit with at least 2 more Batman films. Maybe, as Reeves is hinting at, those films could include the iconic villain in Mr. Freeze, and we'd potentially see his emotional and tragic transformation in a way that we wouldn't expect. I myself would love to see this tackled, especially the more grounded version that Reeves is suggesting, and it gets me thinking about all the other villains that could be included in this new trilogy. Based on the direction they are going for, I personally think we could see the Court of Owls later down the line, as it would fully link into the detective themes and emotional storyline, while being saved as kind of an unravelling for Bruce later in his journey. Reeves could of course tackle any villain he wanted to and make it work, but I would like to see some new theatrical villains like them as well. Still, if Mr. Freeze does turn out to be a focal point, then I would sure be anticipating that iteration. But I'm interested to hear what you guys think towards the potential of Mr. Freeze being a Batman sequel villain, alongside all of the other details I've discussed in this video. So let me know down below in the comment section. For more videos surrounding the Batman leading up to March, including the conclusion of my Road to the Batman series, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.